Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report. Trying something a little bit different with the table layout this time for Crisis Protocol, in that usually you don't want too many buildings because the rule set isn't exactly built for a lot of elevation. Although that said, maybe they'll be clear about it in the future because they've got that New York apartment scenery, official scenery coming out with the Spider-Man releases this summer and whatnot. But in general it's a little awkward having to work with height. But to try something different, here is a map layout where there's a lot of height. And it is going to be a little bit of a smaller game this time. It is a 14 threat match of Web Warriors versus Criminal Syndicate. So with that all out of the way, let's go take a look at the two teams. So there is actually just 4 miniatures in both teams today. This is the 4 in the Web Warriors, of course being led by Miles Morales Spider-Man. And then we also have Daredevil, we have Ghost Spider, and we have, of course, Venom. And the tactics cards, all webbed up, web barrier, disarm, medpack, and still never been used effectively once, but maybe with all the buildings, finally, acute senses. And here are the 4 miniatures in the Criminal Syndicate group, being led by Kingpin. Then we also have Taskmaster, we have Bullseye, and we have Green Goblin. Now very importantly, Green Goblin has a rule about his arch nemesis being Spider-Man, but specifically it is Peter Parker Spider-Man, so that will not be in play here today with Miles or anything like that, so just to make sure that's clear from the start. And their tactics cards, if we look down here real quick: Cruelty, Brace for Impact, Shadow Organization, Marked for Death, and Reversal. And the 2 crisis cards being played, the actual threat value being played was on the Extraction, which is Mutant Extremist Target Senators. So there's 3 safe houses, one of them is the center, don't know which one. You hold the center for 2 victory points in the cleanup phase. You have to flip a safe house to see if it's the right one, and if you're holding the center, you roll 1 less defense die and 1 less dodge die, and your movement becomes small. Then the other one, a classic, probably my favourite, it is the Gamma Wave Sweep Across the Midwest, which is a 15 threat. The 3 Gamma Shelters, you're safe from damage at the end of a turn if you're within 2. If you're within 1, you're claiming, obviously. You get 1 for your own, 2 for the middle, and 3 for the one at the opposing end of the table. So it's kind of like a crosshair. 1 shelter, middle shelter, 3rd shelter, but then across this line we have the 3 potential locations for the Senator. So we don't know who's deploying at which side, so we'll get that all sorted and see who's going first. So both teams are set up. The Web Warriors are on your left, Criminal Syndicate on your right, and it is the Criminal Syndicate who will be taking first activation. Forgot to mention though, the entirety of the Web Warriors team, so including Daredevil, they are all wall crawlers, so the fact that there's a lot of elevation doesn't really matter. It does for the Criminal Syndicate though, so that might offset their ability to count as 2 healthy characters when claiming an objective. But either way, we have Bullseye and Kingpin down here. Green Goblin can fly on his glider, of course, he's up here in the building, and all the way down there we have Taskmaster. And then if we come over here, Venom is just in the streets, ready to take it to them. Daredevil and Miles are up here, and then all the way down there is Gwen Stacy. So with that, let's jump into Battle Round 1. Bullseye got the game started. He moved in a half, more or less, to get over to the safe house. He spent his 1 power to check it, and going to flip it live on camera. Don't know what it is. It is not the Senator. So he has wasted his 1 power, and he will not be safe from the gamma waves where he's standing. For the Web Warriors, their first activation was Gwen Stacy, and it was pretty much the same deal for her. She moves long, but 1 long move isn't enough. So she moved within 1 of this potential Senator location, spent her power, and did not find the Senator. It was a 50-50 shot. So now with 100% certainty, the Senator is hiding in the Gamma Shelter in the middle of the map, which I guess is this building. So that is now very, very important. So of course, with knowing where the Senator is, it was obvious that Green Goblin was going to activate. He can fly, as previously stated, because of his glider. He hopped the gap between buildings, moved into the safety and contesting range of the middle shelter, spent his 1 power to search for the Senator, and oh, would you look at that, he has found him. So that's now on his card, and as previously stated, he's now movement small. He rolls 1 less defense die, and on dodges as well. Matt Murdock, the man with no fear, otherwise known as Daredevil, activated. He moves along. He positioned himself rather, so that he was safely contesting or holding the home Gamma Shelter for the Web Warriors. Then he did a baton toss, which does not need line of sight, it's range 4, and he did it on Green Goblin, who was rolling 3 physical defense instead of 4, and he took 2 damage from it. I like the visual image of Matt just kind of going boing boing, smacks him in the head and then just bounces back down to his hand. So that is 2 damage to him of his... How much health does Goblin have on his health side? He has 7, so he's got 5 left. And he's not going to take much damage this turn, but he's probably not going to be able to hold that position by himself. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, activate. He moves small, so there wasn't much he could do this turn. He moved to position himself for the Criminal Syndicate home gamma shelter, and is safely both, well, he's safe from the blast at the end of the turn, but also just securing it. Positioned where he is to presumably swap places with Green Goblin next turn, because if you aren't aware, any character can kind of like scale buildings, etc. It's just wall crawler means they don't suffer the penalty to their movement range, but he's already small movement, so it can't get much smaller than that. Miles was next up, but he just medium moved twice for his actions to get him into the middle there, although Green Goblin is still claiming control because of the Criminal Syndicate ability that contesting objectives counts as 2 health. Well, as long as you're healthy you count as 2. Don't think Venom can make it up there because he's small movement as well despite his large base and wall crawler. So it probably means that the Criminal Syndicate have that middle gamma shelter, unfortunately. But either way, Miles is in a position where he can hopefully cause a scrap and potentially chase down Green Goblin to stop that civilian getting away. Senator, sorry. Taskmaster was the final activation for Criminal Syndicate. He moved medium once to position himself in a better position for next turn. He was going to do his shield throw and basically do what Daredevil did, bounce, and smack Miles because he's within range 4, but he has stealth, so he's actually only visible within range 3, which presumably still applies for the shield throw because it just says it ignores line of sight, not in stealth, so you can't bounce it up to get him because he's outside of 3 but within 4. So it is over to Venom to end off battle round 1. So for Venom, he just moved small twice. Thanks to his larger base though, it did mean he could wall crawler his way up to where you can see him there. He is within 2 of the central gamma shelter, so he's not going to take damage when the gamma wave sweeps across the map. But he's not close enough to contest, which means that Green Goblin still holds priority there thanks to the Criminal Syndicate affiliation bonus. And that is end of turn, so we'll go to the scoring and gamma wave damage now. So at the end of battle round 1, Green Goblin is of course holding on to the centre for 2 victory points, although he is a little bit hurt. He is also holding majority on the centre, but thanks to the Criminal Syndicate affiliation bonus because only Miles is within 1. So he has claimed that for 2 victory points, and of course they hold their home one for 1 victory point for a total of 5 in battle round 1, which is pretty good. The Web Warriors on the other hand, they only hold their home objective, so they only score a paltry 1 victory point, so 5 playing 1. In battle round 2 it will be the Criminal Syndicate going first again. Oh, and Bullseye and Gwen both took 1 damage from the gamma waves. So I'm sure surprising no one, Green Goblin got battle round 2 started because he wants to get out of dodge. He did a hit and run pumpkin bombs attack, so he activated the superpower, which is a attack and then a move as 1 action. He threw his pumpkin bombs at Miles because he didn't want Venom to generate any power. He got the wild on them as well so he could apply stats before damage, so he only did 1 damage but he did apply bleed. The move put him kind of down there right next to the back of the red car, so then for his other action he moved again so that he is securing the back shelter. So wanting to force a little bit of movement, the Web Warriors wanted to stay in a little bit of a holding pattern, so they did a safe activation. Gwen activated, she just moved with her wall crawler to just scale the building to get into contesting distance easily with her long movement into the middle shelter there. There was also the option, if she was willing to take more damage, is to move to the side, maybe like fire impact webbing at Green Goblin. Keeping the fight around the gamma shelter seemed like the best idea though. Criminal Syndicate did a little holding pattern of their own. Bullseye activated and he doesn't care about gamma radiation poisoning, I guess. He moved forward medium and then he chucked a throwing knife at Daredevil, who does get to add blanks to successes for physical and energy attacks that attack him. All said and done though, and he gets a reroll from Miles' affiliation bonus, but all said and done, he took 1 damage from the throwing knife, and Bullseye is obviously closing in on harassing the backline shelter there. So Daredevil was having none of that and decided to engage with his rival. He stayed where he was, but he did 2 baton tosses. The first one did 2 damage and Bullseye countered with Parting Shot, which you don't need to do the move of incidentally, you can just do the 1 damage, which he did, so that's why Daredevil has taken 1 damage. Then his next baton toss did much better with the roll, did 3, only needed to do 2, so Bullseye has been dazed. Wilson Fisk showed why he is the Kingpin. He spent his first action to clamber up the building, or use a fictional fire escape I guess. Once up here for his other actual action, he used a headbutt on Gwen, got a wild on the one damage he did, so he forced her back small into the corner there. She's still safe in the Gamma Shelter's protection radius, but she's no longer holding it, and she's already activated. Then, for a superpower, he did street level negotiations to pick up Miles and chuck him off the building medium into Daredevil, and they both took 1 damage as a result of that. So he is now the only one currently actually holding the middle objective, and he counts for 2. Miles activated, and for 2 power used Web Swing, so he's placed within 3 of his current position. He was placed right here, and then the next webline kick he does adds 2 to it, making it a 6 dice physical instead of a 4. He did that on the Kingpin. He didn't do any damage, but he did get wild, so before damage is dealt, if the target is size 3 or less, he can throw them away small. And he did so, because Wilson is size 3, so he chucked the Kingpin off the building into Taskmaster there. Wilson has a solid frame passive, so he does not take damage from collisions. But Taskmaster looked up. I imagine this being like Wile E. Coyote looking up and seeing the big rock falling from the sky. He took 3 damage. He only blocked 1. So he blocked the bonus damage added on for the collision. So he got really badly hurt there. But he got some power. And, for Miles' other action, he cleared his bleed. Oh, actually, we're retconning a little bit. The Brace for Impact is being played. So Wilson and Taskmaster both have to spend 1, but it does spare him the 3 damage. Everything else happened as said, and that's that tactics card gone. So Taskmaster was the last one to activate this turn for Criminal Syndicate. He scaled the building for his first action, then just did a sword strike on Miles, and did astonishingly well with his rolls for it. He did 5 damage, so he just one-shot Miles. Gave him a lot of power, but took him out, and he is now, not technically, literally, the only one claiming that central Gamma Shelter, because Gwen is out of range from actually claiming it. Venom still gets to go, but it's just a case of whether or not he can get rid of Taskmaster. So Venom had 1 go, get rid of Taskmaster, and he did. He moved so that he was claiming the Gamma Shelter. He did his basic strike, just needing to do at least 1 damage to generate 1 power, so he could spend 3 on Clintar Rage to pick him up and throw him. And that is exactly how it went. He did 1 exact damage, and he decided to chuck Taskmaster down here into the street so that he is not safe in a Gamma Shelter, rather than throw him over there where he would do contact damage, but Wilson would not take any damage, and Green Goblin needs to be hurt a little bit harder than that. So that is done, and that is the last activation, so it takes us to his scoring for Battle Round 2. So at the end of Battle Round 2, the Criminal Syndicate has retained control of the Civilian/Senator, with Green Goblin still holding on to them for 2 victory points. They hold their home Gamma Shelter down there with Kingpin for 1, so that gives them 3 gained that turn to take them to 8. The Web Warriors clawed back. Some of the difference there though, they have their own Gamma Shelter at the back on the left there. They hold the middle for 2, but that's it. So that takes them to 4, so they're still 4 behind. And it is Criminal Syndicate going first in Battle Round 3 again, because the way the dazes worked out, it didn't take away any activations. Oh, and of course, Taskmaster has taken 1 more damage for not being safe in a Gamma Shelter when the Gamma Wave swept across the map. And now Bullseye and Miles will be flipping their cards. Bullseye got Battle Round 3 started. He spent all 6 of his power on a hit and run pincushion to guarantee, try and guarantee the knockout on Daredevil. As it turns out, it might have been a bit overkill. The hit and run was just so he could move in afterwards, but his initial pincushion attack, even ignoring the free one he would have got to fire afterwards, 5 physical dice, did 3 damage, only needed to do 2 I think. So Daredevil is dazed. He used his free medium movement to move there. He technically has another action, but there's nothing else for him to do. But he is now holding the back line Gamma Shelter, which is very bad for the Web Warriors. Miles was up for the Web Warriors and did some pretty stellar plays there. He medium moved off the building right next to Green Goblin, so he was within the 2 required to do a Venom Strike or Venom Blast, whatever it's called. The one where if you do damage, or even if you don't maybe, you make the target drop their objectives. As it turns out, that wasn't necessary though, because he did an astonishing 5 damage. Remember, Green Goblin was rolling 1 less defense die for holding the Senator. So yeah, he actually just dazed him because he had 2 damage on him from earlier, so Miles paid a power to pick up the Senator, and then also used Webline to get placed within 3. So he is back on the building. He's rolling 1 less defense die now, but he's holding the Senator and he's helping to secure that middle shelter. Taskmaster activated. He medium moved so that he was just within 1 of the back shelter to hold it, and then he bounced his shield boing, 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 into Venom's head for 1 damage. He did get the wild, and presumably because you measure from the original target, it says any distance from him, he was able to ricochet it into Miles. Now in this case it's not going to matter because it did no damage, Miles dodged it, but it is an interesting thing. Does stealth apply when you're doing the ricochet wild bounce on shield throw, which Cap has as well obviously. Again, it doesn't matter here because Miles dodged it, but just a little bit of a curious rules interaction there. Gwen had a pretty busy turn there, spending 3 power across 2 tactics cards. First of all was Medkit, so she spent 2 to heal herself for up to 3, although she only had 2 damage on her wrist just to try and secure the middle there by not getting dazed this turn. Then she also spent 1 on Acute Senses. So, during a character's activation, it may spend 1 to play this card. Enemies don't benefit from stealth, and also she ignores line of sight when attacking during this activation only. Then she positioned herself where she is, specifically for 2 reasons. 1, to make it hard for Kingpin to get up here, because Kingpin's the last activation, and if Kingpin pushes her from wherever he can stand, hopefully, like if he did it from here, he wouldn't be close enough to contest. If he did it from here, he probably wouldn't be close enough to contest, and if he knocked her back, Miles is still there. Basically to make it very, very difficult not to let him in there. Then she did Impact Webbing, which again did not need line of sight. Did it on Taskmaster, didn't really care whether it damaged or not, just needed a wild, and she got the wild, so it pushes him away from her small, meaning that he's not claiming the back objective. And Venom still needs to go as well, so Kingpin's got a difficult choice. Does he hold the ground there to make sure that doesn't get stolen by Venom? Does he come up here and try and shove them away or throw them away? Probably doesn't have enough power for that. So it's a tricky situation, but it's over to Kingpin to end the battle round. Oh sorry, no, well, for Criminal Syndicate yes, but then over to Venom. So a lot of thinking later, Kingpin has just repositioned with his back against the wall there to hold the back objective, because Venom could still technically come down here and is strong enough to throw him. He doesn't have enough power on him now, but if he comes down and lands a hit that generates at least 1 power, he'll be able to pick up Wilson and throw him, I think. So it just comes down to whether or not that happens at this point. I guess we'll see. It's over to Venom. So Venom moved forward small down the building with his wall crawler. He did a basic strike on Wilson. It did it did 2 damage, but he reduces it by 1 because of his what's the polite way his card says that calls him fat? Like intense physical conditioning? Whatever. It reduces it by 1 to a minimum of 1. So he took 1 damage, but he got the wild. He did, the wild doesn't matter. The bleed just procs on the damage at all. And then he spent 3 power to pick up Wilson because he's size 3 or less, and throw him medium. Didn't bother impacting with anything because he doesn't take damage from collisions. But he is not holding this, neither is Taskmaster, so that means Venom is. So that counters Bullseye holding their back one, and Wilson is going to get a little bit irradiated. And now we go into the end phase for this turn. So at the end of Battle Round 3, the Web Warriors have made a massive comeback. Miles is obviously holding the Senator for 2 victory points. He and Gwen are holding the middle shelter for 2 victory points. And they hold Criminal Syndicate's shelter for 3. But the Criminal Syndicate, of course, claimed their back one for 3 also. So as we go into Battle Round 4 with the Criminal Syndicate going first, both teams are actually tied on 11 victory points. So it's everything to play for. One team does well enough this turn and they could win. Daredevil will be flipping his card, Green Goblin will be flipping his card, and Wilson has taken 1 additional damage from the Gamma Waves. So with everything to play for and a lot of power in his back pocket burning a hole in it, Green Goblin activated and did a Glider Ram, which is only on his wounded side, to ram himself into Gwen, which counts as a medium move, and then he doesn't take any damage from the impact. That was to get him up there without using an action. She took 2 damage from that. He then did Knight of the Goblin on Miles. It did 2 damage, and because it did damage it also poisons and incinerates him. And then he threw Pumpkin Bombs, and presumably the Incinerate losing a defense die also stacks with losing a defense die from the center, so Miles was only rolling 1. Thankfully the Pumpkin Bomb roll was terrible, but he still did take 1 damage, so he's got 2 health left on his wounded side carrying the Senator. Green Goblin did not get close enough to claim that, but he was going for a kill there and didn't quite get it, which might make a difference. He wouldn't have been able to pick up the Senator on his wounded side because he's gone crazy, but he still counts for contesting and whatnot. So Miles activated and he had to get out of there. He spent a total of 5, but he first spent 2 to do Web Swing to be placed within 3. He was placed right down here, and then he spent his 3 on a Venom Blast into Bullseye. It did 4 damage, not enough to take him out. So he did a Webline Kick, which got 2 boosted dice because he did the Web Swing. It only did 1 damage, but that was exactly enough on his wounded side that Bullseye is no longer a threat. So with only Wilson and Taskmaster left to go, there were some difficult decisions to be made. Taskmaster did end up activating out of the 2 of them. He considered moving medium like there and then bouncing his shield round to potentially take out Miles if he could do 2 damage. But then Daredevil, who hasn't gone yet, could just pick it up afterwards, the Senator that is. So that didn't seem like the play. He is on his healthy side though, so he moved to the building and then did a climb with a shorter movement to get up to where you can see him. Because he's on his healthy side, he's counting as 2 characters, meaning that despite Green Goblin not being in range, he is now claiming that middle objective. Gwen's on her healthy side, he can't attack her, but it doesn't matter if he counts as 2. So now it's over to either Daredevil or Venom, and then back over to Wilson. Daredevil activated, and remember he also has Wall Crawler, so he moved up to be claiming the middle, and then he spent 5 power on Devil's Deliverance, which I think might be usually amongst the absolute worst attacks in the game. It's base 2 physical dice, but you get +1 for every attack enemy character in range. There was 2, so that made it a 4 physical. Automatically did 1 damage to Gwen because she was caught in the AoE. Didn't really do it for the damage, although it did do 3 damage to Green Goblin. But what it actually also does, which is very important, is knocks back people small. I think it was errated to specify beneath a certain size, but regardless, Taskmaster is human-sized, so he was knocked back, and he is no longer claiming that objective. And I think that right there, despite my opinion that Devil's Deliverance is a terrible attack and makes Daredevil not worth his cost at all, it might have actually just secured them the win this time. So it's pretty much over, but Wilson did activate and he moved into the Gamma Shelter there. Venom can't throw him unless he somehow manages to do 4 damage because it would be reduced down to 3 to Wilson, so he's not going to do anything other than contest that back shelter. So it is going to take us to the scoring, and I'm pretty sure the Web Warriors have taken this. So looking at the scores, the Web Warriors have done exactly enough. Criminal Syndicate earned nothing there thanks to Venom countering Kingpin. They have the Senator on Miles for 2, he's also holding their backline shelter for 1, and thanks to Devil's Deliverance, the attack I despise because it's not worth it at all 99% of the time, actually saved the day, because if Taskmaster was still there, it would have been a draw, no points, and that would mean there would be another round. Now granted, Web Warriors would probably still have gone on to win because they just would have needed 2 victory points, but Devil's Deliverance did make it end right here. I wish Daredevil was better than he is. I was going to moan about how he is definitely not worth a 4 threat character, but he saved the day, so anything I say would be moot, because this time he was absolutely worth it. His early plays with baton tosses, ignoring line of sight or not needing line of sight, were also handy. In this particular setup he did really well, so I can't complain, but he should be 3 threat. Let's just say that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. A little bit of a shorter one, as to say, with a smaller threat value, what you expect, and an interesting terrain setup for Crisis Protocol, which presumably they're leaning more into with the release of more and more building terrain sets. But Web Warriors kind of negated the interesting part of this by just being able to scale walls and whatnot. But either way, hope you enjoyed. Please do show your support, and see you in the future for some more. Until then, ta-ta for now.